Cleaning a chassis with navel jelly is a pretty straightforward affair. You just need your little jar of navel jelly. I bought a great big jar and then I refilled this one as needed. And you need some Q-tips, just a handful I had in my drawer. Pour the old navel jelly in the cap and then just start smearing it around. I like to. You don't have to use Q-tips if you don't want. I like using Q-tips because I get to guide it easier. I can be a lot more careful around the sockets and the holes. I don't want this stuff dripping down through the holes if I can help it. So I can kind of like dab it around the edge. But you know, a person can use whatever he wants any way they want. And then keep dabbing it into the navel jelly and smearing it around. Yeah, this chassis probably won't need it to set more than, maybe 10-15 minutes. Then I can wipe it off with a wet rag. Keep in mind that navel jelly not only works to remove rust, but it also is a great chassis cleaner. I'll tell you what, it's a little bit time consuming. You can already see the stuff coming off that chassis on that Q-tip, and I'm not even hardly putting any pressure there. Anyway, we'll go ahead and smear it around a little bit, and then I'll come back and we'll wipe it off and see what it looks like. It's been about 15 minutes now. I went ahead and I just put the navel jelly across the top and then down this side over here and over here a little ways, just to kind of give you an idea what it's like. I'll wind up working the rest of the afternoon on it, just fiddling around, fiddle-farting around until I get it as clean as I want. Navel jelly will not hurt the tube sockets. You don't have to worry about that too much, but you don't want to be getting it down in there. And as you can see, already the chassis is looking better. I primarily want to get it clean. I'm not interested in making it shiny and all that stuff. I want it clean because I plan to paint this chassis, and I want any underlying grease, gook, crap not to be underneath the paint. I'll be using Rust-Oleum Automotive Primer on it first, which is really, really good stuff. I'll probably put about 2 coats of that, and then I'm going to paint it silver. And I'll show you the finished product when we're done. Before the paint job, that is. I've also decided to go ahead and put a little bit of this navel jelly on top of the transformer. I had some rust there. There's no rust on the sides, but there is on the top. So we'll let that go ahead and soak in for about another 15-20 minutes there also. Incidentally, you don't want to be breathing the fumes from this navel jelly. Follow the directions in the back of the label. If you feel like you're getting maybe a little bit more up your nose than you would like to have, then go ahead and leave the area or do this outside. You know, it's not that strong. You know, we're not talking about a hyper strong odor, but you know, it bothers some people more than others. And I'll go ahead and spend about 5 or 10 minutes and then walk away, that sort of thing. It's a phosphoric acid, very mild, but you know, you don't want to be breathing it. And as you can see, the chassis is looking better and better by the minute. Not done yet though. The chassis has been all masked off, as you can see. Covered almost every hole I could cover. I'll have to go up on the inside and cover these 3 holes here. 1, 2, 3. These are the holes that mount the variable capacitor to the chassis. And the old ones were brittle and hard and crapola. So I took them out of there, and they'll be replaced eventually with these nice new spongy rubber jobs that I picked up at Lowe's. They work great. They'll go down in the chassis in all 3 of those holes, and the variable capacitor will sit on it, be nice and stable, and have great foundation for the future. So right now, let's go ahead and put a piece of tape or something up underneath these holes to plug these, and then we're going to go ahead and put some Rust-Oleum Automobile Primer. I like that stuff. Rust-Oleum has fish oil in it. That's what keeps the rust from spreading. It binds rust. It doesn't eliminate it, but it binds it and keeps it from spreading. Some old fish captain, ship's captain years ago who worked a fishing boat, discovered that one end of his boat did not rust. I mean, the rust didn't spread where they cut the fish on the deck. And he said, "Man, what's going on here? This is kind of interesting." The other end of the ship was rusting like crazy, and that's how it was discovered. At least that's the story of how fish oil will prevent rust from spreading. It just binds it and holds it in place. Voila, Rust-Oleum. Yeah, before we start painting, I thought I'd show you this is what's left of those hard rubber bushings that were originally underneath that tuning capacitor. They just fell apart and crumbled up. Worthless junk. Just hardens up over the years. I'm using the light colored primer because it'll match up or be easier to cover with the silver that follows. If I used a really dark color, it would be probably 5 or 6 coats of silver trying to get it covered. So I'll be using the metallic, of course, Rust-Oleum brand for both. So let's see how it goes. The primer has dried, but it's just a little rough in places. So what I've got here is some 1000 grit paper. I'm just going to kind of give it a little touch up. Smooth it down just a little bit, here and there. Not too much pressure. The sanding is done. The surface smooth as a baby's butt. Now I'm going to take the chassis, I'm going to set it on these 2 paint can tops that are upside down. And that gets it up off the paper, so we don't have to worry about the bottom of the chassis sticking to the newspaper. This will pretty much keep that from happening. Time to shoot it with the metallic silver. See you when I'm done. I turned it around and shot it from the rear, and I think that's going to take care of it. A couple of coats of nice silver metallic paint on there will protect it for the future. I hope you all can see this, but the push buttons are now operational. This rod that runs the entire length of the mechanism is now freely moving up and down and catching in these little slots here. And the way I was able to accomplish that was I realized that apparently there was some kind of a bushing or something at one time at the front of each one of these horizontal rods, which did not allow the rod to go all the way in that direction, all the way in this direction. But over the years they've apparently fallen out and they're gone by the wayside. And what was happening was the horizontal rod was going too far forward, and this notch right here, this back notch on each one of these horizontal rods was catching on this bar, not allowing the bar to drop all the way in. So the way I overcame that was I replaced, I couldn't get this thing apart in order to put new rubber O-rings there, which is what I really wanted to do. So I made cardboard shims, and I cut them out, little U shapes, and went ahead and super glued them in place. Now what that did was cause this horizontal rod on each one of these horizontal rods actually to move back far enough to clear this vertical rod, which has the spring at the top. Now watch what happens. Now I'll start with the bottom button here. You see that rod moved, and of course the rod does what the vertical rod does what it's supposed to do, and the buttons now stay in. Cool. Works great. Now all I have to do is solder the wires back in. I put new wires on it, and we're getting very, very close to turning this baby on. I want to install a power resistor down here somewhere, which will cut down the incoming voltage. I also want to put a fuse in it and attach and put a brand new power cord on it with a plug. Once I get all that done, we'll bring it up slowly on the Variac and keep our fingers crossed, as they say. good to go. One more thing, there were two rubber bushings right here, one there and one there, that were hard as a rock also. And they held the front of the mechanism to the body of the mechanism, and they've been replaced with new rubber. And of course it's nice and solid now, whereas before it used to flop around. It held this front plate area to this main body. Nice and tight, nice and snug. The next part of this restoration requires, well, it doesn't really require it, but it's always good to have. Put a fuse in the line. I've taken some JB Weld, roughed up the surface with my moto tool and a grinding stone, and then JB welded this thing, this fuse holder, to the chassis. And the reason I do it that way is I don't like to drill a lot of holes in a chassis. Better to use JB Weld and a fuse holder like this. And I also have a 45 ohm 25 watt power resistor in line with the power line that's coming in to cut down the voltage. I have 125 volts coming out of the wall where I live. I don't know how much you've got coming out of your wall, but if you were to use a 45 ohm 25 watt power resistor in your radio, you could cut the voltage down to anywhere between, I'd say, 113 up to 117 volts. And that would make the power transformers run a whole lot cooler. So what's going to happen is the power line will come in. One side of the power line will get connected to the fuse right here, and then of course the juice will run through the fuse and then through this wire, through the power resistor, and then out the other end, and then it'll run on down up to the side that has the power switch, the on-off switch connected to it. So it'll run up this wire, along this black wire, over to the power switch, which is right here, the power on-off switch. And then from there it'll run down this wire here into the primary of the power transformer. It will then come back out the other side of the primary, this wire right here, and up to this terminal. And on the bottom of this terminal, where that hole is right there, I don't know if you can see it very well, but that's where the second side of the power line coming through the chassis wall will connect. And that will complete my power transformer primary circuit. Protected by a fuse, cut down the voltage to keep things much cooler. We're getting down to the minute details of this thing. This is the on-off switch shaft, and as you can see, it's very corroded. I went ahead and took it apart. This thing here slid over the top of it. This is the dial string pulley right there. Slides over the top of the on-off switch shaft, and it turns, which in turn the dial cord will come up and wrap around here, and it will also wrap around this section of the of this brass rod. So I'm going to clean this all up, make it look really nice. And this thing here is a bracket that goes on, and there's this little sliding mechanism. I guess it's a tension spring of some kind. I'm not exactly certain what it does, but it does ride against the shaft right here, and it does have a retaining clip on the other end, which goes into that slot you see right there, like that. So we're going to clean this up, make it look real good, and grease it up. Paying attention to the details is what really saves the day later on when you're getting ready to turn on your radio. Never get in a hurry to restore these radios. I'm a member of the Antique Radio Forum, and I cannot tell you how many times I've read about guys who have tried to restore these radios in a day and a half, and they screw them up. This doesn't work. They get things soldered back together the wrong way. What did I do wrong? I need some help. It takes me sometimes 3, 4, 5 months to properly restore the chassis of a vintage tube radio. You know, this thing's been sitting around for 65, 70 years. What's another couple of months? No problem.
Computer, freeze program.